Hey guys, before we get into the episode, a little information up front. I'm very sorry. I have my first cold of the year, possibly the last 2 years. I'm not sure. Hopefully it isn't too nasally for you guys. The interviews I recorded before I had a cold. So, and speaking of, we have an interview with Scott from the band Cerebus. And if you don't know this band, they were an amazing band back in the 80s that most of us overlooked. I didn't know about them at the time. I'm glad I know about them now. Great stuff. If you like Maiden, if you like Queensryche, they're going to be right up your alley. And I'm hesitant to say those two bands because they don't really sound like either one of those bands, although I could see fans of those two bands digging these guys. Great stuff. So stay tuned for an interview with Scott, the vocalist of Cerebus, and some music by Cerebus. And then after that, my friend Carl Alvarez is back, and we talk about our heavy metal memories, more heavy metal memories from Mark and Carl. So definitely stay tuned for that. And a little business to take care of before we get into the episode. First order of business is I need to go blow my nose because it's a wreck. And I'm going to hit pause. And then we're going to come back and deliver some more business info for you guys. If you guys can do me a favor with this stuff, I'd appreciate it. Go do the survey. All right, here we go. Listen, we would love to have some great advertisers here to support what we do on Talking Metal, but in order to do that, we're going to need your help. So listen, do me a favor and go to podsurvey.com/metal. I'm going to have that linked through the show notes. It's podsurvey.com/metal. Take a look. There's an anonymous survey, and it's going to help us get started with some advertisers, or get back with some advertisers, I should say. If you take this survey, it can show advertisers just how great you guys are. Even if you've taken one of these podcast surveys before, we need you to do it again for the for our show, which is podsurvey.com/metal. And again, if you've done one in the past, that's great for whatever show you were supporting, but could please do it for our show. I'd really appreciate that. And the cool thing is that once you've completed the survey, you can enter to win a $100 Amazon gift card. And this is real. They will send this out to you guys. It's not a scam. There are a lot of winners, so there is a chance you could win this $100 Amazon gift card. Again, that's podsurvey.com/metal. podsurvey.com/metal. Thanks for your help, guys. We really appreciate it. And now let's get into the show. We have some great guests. Carl Alvarez is back sharing heavy metal memories with me. And also a great band. If you don't know these guys, this band is great. Cerebus. And we're going to be talking with Scott, their singer. They were kind of an underground metal band from the 1980s. And they put out just some great material back then that we're going to listen to. I know you guys are going to like it. And we have a brief interview with Scott from the band. They're back together after many years. And they're going to be reissuing some of the classic stuff, which you will hear on today's episode. So, all right, guys, thanks. And thanks for doing the survey. I really appreciate the support. We got Scott Board from Cerebus and Carl Alvarez from the Inside Metal documentary series on the show today. Yeah. Sorry about that intro. You know how it is. Trying to beef things up. There's a lot of stuff going on. Trying to get some advertisers. Trying to break even doing this show instead of losing money on it every month. So if you could take the survey, that would be great. There's other ways you can support. You can use our Amazon links on talkingmetal.com. You can do a PayPal donation. If we ever do get an advertiser back on the show, you can support the advertiser. Currently, no advertisers on this particular episode. And having said that, let's get into some Cerebus music. And then hear from Scott from Cerebus. Okay, guys, this is going way back to the 80s here. Distant Eyes. The band is Cerebus. We'll have them linked through today's show notes. Again, this is Distant Eyes. Now we're going to talk with Scott from Cerebus. Hey, it's Mark Striegel of Talking Metal, and calling in on the line from the band Cerebus, we have Scott Board. How are you, Scott?
Doing good, man. Thank you for having me.
So I wanted to get into your history with the band and talk about all that history because there's a lot of it. But I guess let's talk about what's going on right now. The band, after what appears to be, from my research, a long break, is getting back together, and there's even at least one show booked, I believe, in Chicago. So let's...
This is true, yeah.
So is it just the one show right now that's booked?
Yeah, for right now it is. There is some interest in other festivals and maybe some other regional dates as well for the band. You know, some maybe hook up with some other good metal acts and do some shows. But yeah, right now the Legions of Metal Festival in Chicago, May 20th, is our first official gig back together. And yeah, it has been a long hiatus for the band Cerebus. However, Eric Burgess, the bass player, and Chris Fennell, our guitar player, who we lost back in 2010. We've actually played a lot of music since Cerebus throughout the 90s and everything too. Okay. So we have been playing and in contact and everything like that, and actually writing music together throughout that time period on and off. But yeah, ever since. Really, Jeremy Golden at Heaven and Hell Records is pretty instrumental in this reunion, and he's been urging me to try to get in touch with the guys and talk to them about it for a while. And I was very surprised when I talked with Eric that he was interested in all of it, and especially possibly doing live shows. And from there, we signed on immediately to do the Legions of Metal thing up in Chicago, and cool. So we're really excited about doing that. And some really good bands are going to be on that, and some North Carolina acts as well. And so we're really excited to be representing on that, and to be back as well. It's been a long time, and from Cerebus.
Yeah, so Cerebus is from the North Carolina area, and are you still all located down in that area?
Yes, we are.
Right. Okay.
We sure are.
And you mentioned Eric, who is the bassist of the band, and you're the vocalist. And you said that Eric, you were surprised that Eric wanted to do this.
Everybody has been, kind of in hiatus and not been really playing music live or doing anything for quite a while now, 10, 15 years, most of the guys, other careers and everything and family obligations, have come into play and everything. And actually, when we lost Chris back in 2010, that was a real took the wind out of the Cerebus sails, so to speak, for sure. And it was really hard for everybody to really get wrap their head around playing together again, without Chris, and I certainly understand that.
Right.
We're actually in rehearsals and everything now for the shows coming up and everything, and like I say, hopefully we can do more than just the one thing. Right now we're just we're concentrating on really kicking ass for that performance, and probably we'll be concentrating on the Too Late to Pray stuff too
Cool.
When we do come out, for right now, at least.
Excellent.
And but we're really, really excited and really just very fortunate and very grateful to have the opportunity to come back out, with the new re-releases that Jeremy's doing over at Heaven and Hell Records, of all the classic Cerebus catalog, all 3 albums. Actually, there are 2 EPs and 1 full album that we did, Too Late to Pray.
Okay, so just to he's going to be releasing the full-length kind of classic record that a lot of the underground metal fans know, which is from 1986, Too Late to Pray.
Right.
But then he's also going to be, you had other demos and as you mentioned, EPs, so some of that stuff, that other stuff will also be re-released.
Absolutely, all of it will, and remastered off the best sources and everything, and also with a whole bunch of really cool new artwork, as well as never before seen photos that we've uncovered. There's going to be a bio on all the stuff, sort of a documentary of everything that I'm putting together right now for that, and it's going to be a really, really cool package, and it's also going to include, we're really excited for this, Eric and I are, especially in memoriam to Chris. There's a full-length 8-song demo that we did as the members of Cerebus, myself, Eric on bass, Chris on guitar, and Andy, our other guitar player, was actually playing drums on some of this stuff, as well as I did. And he also played some guitar on there as well, and it's a really cool addition to the regression progression end of the package that's coming out, and it's the something more, quote unquote, end of the package there, and we're really excited for people to hear that, because Chris would have really loved that's being put out and in a good way like that worldwide. So
absolutely,
we're really excited about that.
And
yeah.
Who will be in the band now? Like, it's obviously you on vocals, Eric on bass, and Andy is back on guitar too?
No, actually, Andy's not going to be able to do the reunion with us this time out. He has some commitments, with his career and everything that he does. However, on drums, we have Steve Arnold, who's also been sort of my right-hand drummer for years and years here in many bands and some of the tributes that we do as well. He's the drummer from the Banshee on the Loose LP as well, or EP, sorry. So yeah, really great monster drummer there coming in. On one of the guitars is our old friend that actually played in the cover band version of Cerebus before we started doing original stuff. That's a really good monster guitar player, Tony Merritt. And also on the other guitar will be our good friend and guitar player from the cover band version of Cerebus, Bruce Drake.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and some fans probably have seen Bruce in some of the clips that are on YouTube of us from like '84. I think it's Atlantic Beach, Come Rock the Night, that kind of thing.
Right.
And I'm playing drums actually back then.
Wow.
And Bruce is on guitar on that. So yeah, but yeah, it's going to be a real cool lineup, and we kind of wanted to try to keep it in the family, so to speak.
Sure. Well, it sounds like you are. Definitely.
And it was really, really cool that those guys could come back in. Even though they didn't have anything to do with the first album and everything, but they were really good players, and it's really cool that those guys could come in now and be part of this.
Cool.
And who knows down the road whether there might be new music or whatever like that. Right now, we're just taking things one little step at a time. And,
right on. Well, that was going to be one of my questions.
What happens.
Yeah, that was one of my questions. Yeah. Could there be new music down the road? It sounds like that's a possibility. Going
that
back,
would be great.
Yeah, going back into the back in the day, as we say, to the 1980s. When you guys were putting out records, I wanted to ask you about where you fit in, because we look at Too Late to Pray, 1986, and you think about what was going on in metal at that time, and a lot of the bands, even, Maiden and, with Wasted Years and Ozzy with, Ultimate Sin, some of the more harder metal bands in some ways were going maybe just a little bit more commercial.
Right.
You had the thrash stuff starting to really blow up right around that time period, but you guys really, you didn't fit into the what I would call commercial pop metal sound, and you weren't you weren't really a straight ahead thrash metal band either. You were more
a little more melodic or thrash.
Yeah, what we call melodic metal nowadays, and
I think a lot of that is from early and classic Priest, early and classic Scorpions, Saxon for sure, Maiden of course. There's a lot of Thin Lizzy in there, and Deep Purple, and bands like UFO too. Definitely intertwined in some of the influence in that. So you get a lot of melodic influence, and you get a lot of the hard edge stuff too. But yeah, stuff like Saxon and Riot, and that was really, tripping our chains, so to speak, back then. So we really wanted to write some really fast, cool stuff like that, and obviously, the thrash and Maiden and that stuff that was going on was very influential on Eric's writing. Eric was the main songwriter in most of all of Cerebus. I didn't really start writing some of the songs until later on into regression era. And it was interesting back then. We had so many songs back then. We would do so many. We'd do a lot of stuff live that never made it onto record and stuff like that. We just kept writing and kept intertwining the songs into the live set just because we wanted to do them and introduce them that way. But back then we were definitely influenced by that early new album movement stuff for sure. Crocus, that kind of stuff, Sax, and all that. As I mentioned, all those bands were very influential on Eric's writing for sure.
Absolutely, and just the overall sound. And
absolutely.
One thing I hope when the stuff gets re-released that they don't go overboard with like doing any remastering or anything, because I just love that raw sound that you guys had, and I hope that's preserved on this.
Yeah, definitely. Release. Everything is definitely just widened up and turned up a little bit, but left exactly as it was. And because that's definitely what the any of the fans that want to hear that kind of stuff back then, they or any of the collectors of the Cerebus stuff up to now, that's what they wanted, is that old style and the actual original. If it sounds raw and it sounds like a garage demo, then that's what they want. Yeah. And I get that. It's authentic like that.
Cool. And you guys obviously you had a big following in the North Carolina area, but there were fans all over the world, right?
Yeah, I would say more or less all over the world than even in North Carolina and North Carolina area, and this area sort of followed along, when everything else started to happen. And it still blows our minds that people know who we are from there. It's been so long, and we never really made a huge mark, so to speak. Before we kind of started drifting back into our next releases after Too Late to Pray was sort of a little more underground, harder to find. You had to get them at our live shows, that kind of thing, by mail, and everything we kind of went back into the underground as far as being available to a lot of fans or for them to find us after that.
Now, was Too Late to Pray, was that released on like an independent label?
Yeah, a New Renaissance label out of California. Okay. And they were very instrumental in getting us a lot of really good press and really good interviews and radio airplay over in Europe and everything as well. And without that opportunity, we probably, it'd have been a long, hard road to for us to get that kind of recognition. We got some incredible press, as I remember back in the day. We're writing the magazines with they're doing us. They're doing. There's one in particular. I remember, like Hit Parader, and they were interviewing us for Too Late to Pray, and also we're right in the middle of Queen's Right with Rage for Order, and then Iron Maiden's Somewhere in Time, and then we're like, wow. Yeah. That's great company to be in on that one. It just blew our minds, the kind of press that they could get us, and that really helped get the word out and the initial, surge of knowledge about our band.
Right on.
And I've always said this in most interviews, that if we would have maybe sought out more diligently real management and stuff at that time, to get us, overseas where we were really happening, we may have could have went, a lot farther with Cerebus, even over in European markets and such. But again, this was way before, just Google searching and finding and emailing or anything like that. You're literally, on the phone. If you have a phone number, if you can find a phone number, you're literally doing that and writing letters back then. So it's just way before that, the advent of the internet,
right on.
That's helped bands considerably.
Helps get the word out, definitely.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, listen, Scott, it's been great talking with you tonight on Talking Metal, and we're gonna turn the listeners on to some of your music from back in the day tonight. And is there any place online that they can check you out? Is there a Facebook page, a website, anything like that?
Our official Cerebus Facebook page is on Facebook at Cerebus Official, and also look us up at Heaven and Hell Records on Facebook and at heavenhellrecords.com. And the new re-releases should be out within the next couple months. Look for those.
Excellent.
We'll be advertising immediately all over, social media and stuff like that. So, keep your ear to the ground about Cerebus, because we're ready to do some special things this time around, I think.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Board of Cerebus here on Talking Metal. We'll have all those links Scott just mentioned posted in today's show notes on talkingmetal.com. Scott, thanks so much.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
A little Cerebus on Talking Metal. That's going way back to the 1980s. That song right there called Taking Your Chances. And I'm really looking forward to these re-releases by this band. I'll definitely be picking them up and supporting Cerebus. Scott, pleasure meeting you. If you're listening to this, please keep in touch. Get up here to the New Jersey or New York City area and play a gig for us. I'll be there for sure. Alrighty. On that note, we're going to soon get into more heavy metal memories with Carl Alvarez from the Inside Metal documentary series. If you haven't seen the series, definitely check it out. I'll have it linked through today's show notes. It's on Amazon Prime. You can stream it if you do Amazon Prime, which is a great way to watch video content, by the way. I've been watching, actually, Transplant. No, what is it called? Fucking not Transplant. Transparent. I'm like 4 episodes into that. It's with the guy, I forget his name, from Arrested Development, playing a dad who is a cross-dresser. So it's interesting. It's a good show. But anyways, Amazon Prime also offering Inside Metal, the documentary series that Carl Alvarez is a producer on. Cool. So having said that, let's check out one of my favorite guitar players. He does what in some ways has sort of become the Talking Metal theme song. I open most shows with a song called Which Way to Radio Land by the Sean Baker Orchestra. But which is just a killer song. I never get sick of that song. Been playing it on hundreds and hundreds of episodes, and I still love listening to it. But, you know, the guy, Sean Baker, and his orchestra, he does have other awesome music, and I highly recommend you go check some of it out. Like, for example, this song, which is a great, great listen. It's off the Game On record, and it's called Shrapnel in Your Ear here on Talking Metal. And after this, we're going to talk with my friend Carl Alvarez from the Inside Metal documentary series, and we're going to talk about Ozzy and Jakey Lee and Metallica, all sorts of fun stuff. So stay tuned for that. And right now, a little music by the Sean Baker Orchestra. Shrapnel in Your Ear is the name of this song. Go buy it on iTunes. All right, guys. Joining us once again, our friend Carl Alvarez from the Inside Metal documentary series, which I watched on Amazon Prime, and you can buy the DVD. We'll have the links up in today's show notes on Talking Metal for that. And Carl, you guys are getting it actually on TV, it sounds like, on Access, right?
Yeah, they ran it for Christmas.
Really? Wow. That's
event.
Really incredible. You guys scored that. Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, that really worked out good for us. They are going to be running some of the future episodes kind of more in a format for their I don't know how it's going to all play out in terms of when they'll air it, but that's the plan. They'll be airing different episodes throughout this year. So
wow. Yeah, Access TV is a TV station. If you guys don't know, it's owned by some pretty big heavyweight guys, Mark Cuban and who's the guy from American Idol?
Simon Cowell?
No, the other guy, the guy with the microphone. Yeah. Ryan Seacrest and Mark Cuban are the owners of Access TV, and Inside Metal, the documentary that Carl produced, it sounds like getting some airtime on Access TV. So, yeah, cool.
Awesome.
And, Carl, we were talking last time you were on about some of our early hard rock and heavy metal memories. And, you know, I had mentioned to you that I saw Ozzy for the first time on that Ultimate Sin tour, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what I witnessed at that concert. But first, you had actually you saw Ozzy early on with Randy. Then I know you told me you did see him on the Ultimate Sin tour with Metallica opening at the Long Beach Arena. But did you see him any time in between then? Did you see him on the Bark at the Moon tour?
I missed Bark at the Moon. They played at Long Beach Arena April of '84. Rat opened the show. I kind of missed that for whatever reason. Don't know why, but just missed it. But, of course, US Festival, which I missed that too, which was Jakey Lee's, debut of sorts, yeah.
But then you did see them when they came to Long Beach Arena in, I guess it was June of '86, probably, right? And there was, you not only saw the Metallica and Ozzy play that night, but you actually had some face-to-face encounters with various people, if I understand your email that you sent me correctly. Who'd you run into that night?
Well, as you said, it was June of '86, and quite a kind of a interesting time because that was kind of like the end of the school year. It was like the first concert of the summer, if you will, big concert. Right. And Ozzy and Metallica were playing. They had already played the previous night, and we had a radio station that just started up called KNAC, which is kind of the first, one-of-a-kind commercial hard rock stations.
Right.
And they were pumping it out of Long Beach. So they had a real kind of community really happening with that radio station. So we go to that show, and that's all you hear, just driving up in the parking lot. KNAC is just promoting the show. They're there in full force. Metallica is really a lot of people were going to see Metallica as opposed to the other way around, although people were Ozzy fans too. I should also mention prior to this, a friend of mine who I went with was Cosmo Bloom, who was a DJ at one of the college stations, and he happened to score an interview with Lars, probably in April, I guess, when Lars was kind of doing the press junket with a lot of the college radio stations. And Cosmo was he had an English accent. He was from England and stuff, but he was going to school out where I lived at the University of Redlands. So he's one of the metal DJs at the station, the only metal DJ, actually. So he scored this interview, and we had already had tickets for the show, so I was just kind of egging him on. Hey, ask Lars for passes, So at the very end of the interview, he asked him for passes, and he says, just talk to the Electra college rep, and they'll get you squared away. So yeah, we had no idea we were going to get passes until we rolled up, and there they were. So we got passes, and we were in, basically. So we got there, and right when we got there, Metallica had just started. They were playing Welcome Home Sanitarium. I remember it vividly just because we were trying to hunt for our seat at that time, throwing our passes on and just watching the show. And it was pretty incredible just because everybody was there for Metallica. You could just feel it, the energy. And just seeing Cliff was kind of a trip. Here's another guy, as I mentioned, Angus Young the last time, and seeing Cliff this time.
So much energy.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't move. I mean, he moved the whole time we were watching him, and it was just incredible. But just seeing it was pretty cool. They had a pretty short set, maybe 50 minutes. We probably saw 45 minutes of it. And yeah, it was pretty intense. So the encounters that night, so we have our passes. This is the first time, this is my second time I kind of had passes to a show, but the way the lay of the land of this place was, maybe it hold like 7,000 to 8,000, maybe 10,000 people, I guess. And it was really weird that night. There was a gap between the bleachers and the balcony. And I guess some kid tried to go down, wherever everybody started to try to go down to get closer that were in the upper seats. Right. Well, he missed a step and fell basically to his death that night. God. So this is kind of like it's kind of a creepy moment, not knowing what had happened, and all the paramedics were there. Right. And they were like cleaning up the mess. I think they actually held us from actually going back there until everything was kind of clear.
And this is, again, Long Beach Arena, the same place that I guess a couple years earlier, Iron Maiden recorded Live After Death there, right?
Yes, exactly. It's basically a very infamous place. All the hard rock bands rolled through there. It's kind of still considered a secondary market, but it's still Los Angeles is considered as the big market too, and Long Beach is being south of LA.
Right.
So we didn't really learn until later what had actually happened. We just kind of saw the melee of just all this commotion going on back there. So we kind of make our way to the Metallica section. I don't know where Ozzy's area was, but this is kind of like this. It was kind of a corridor, and you go through, and it's basically, it wasn't even like an open room. It was more like a hallway. But you knew Metallica's area was there, but they had the door closed. It was kind of cordoned off and stuff. But I remember we were just waiting there the whole time, kind of like, okay, when we're going to meet the guys in Metallica. And I don't know, I just got the feeling they weren't into like doing any sort of meet and greet. They kind of had their like little posse of people. I know the Armored Saint guys came there and hung out. Dave Pritchard, Joey Vera, and Gonzo were there hanging out with the Metallica guys. But my friend Cosmo kind of got bored with, like, he knocked on the door, and it was like kind of like, oh, they're not ready yet to kind of hang out, so just give them time or whatever. He got tired and went back to his seat and said, I'll just meet you over there, when Ozzy starts, because I don't want to miss that. So I remember seeing Cliff come out, and it was kind of a trip because he was kind of on his own. He was just he was going back to the hotel or whatever, and I remember he had this kind of like a hippie suede hat on and the bell bottoms.
Which at the time, that style came back into style kind of in the 90s, but in the mid 80s to walk around with like that hippie look, that was not a cool look, and I always thought that Cliff, he just didn't give a shit. He had to be, Van Halen got shit from the press for wearing bell bottoms in 79 because bell bottoms were kind of on the way out, at that time from what was cool. But, here's Cliff in 1986 still walking around in bell bottoms. I don't know if younger listeners can understand, but that was not a cool thing, and that was like a fashion no in 1986. But he didn't give a shit,
Oh yeah, I think that whole style when I saw him walk, it's kind of like everybody kind of has their own walk, and he had like this kind of like saunter that when he walked, it was like the bell bottoms and the whole thing kind of fit him. It wasn't like they say you don't wear fashion. Or you wear fashion, you don't let fashion wear you. That's right. Basically Cliff's vibe was it. He was the whole deal, and that was his thing, and just seeing him face to face like that, it was. I kind of like I appreciated it more later in life, but seeing it was kind of interesting to see that, and just kind of his kind of motif as he walked by, and I just saw him kind of kill the stage basically. Because Metallica sounded good that night, so kind of that's kind of like my Metallica moment, and I just kind of said, well, okay, I'll just go back and see Ozzy because he's already started by then, and I remember the Armored Saint guys, they must have went back to the hotel where Metallica was hanging out or whatever, because it seemed like the party was continuing. It just wasn't with us, but yeah. So I finally go back and we watched the whole Metallica set. the whole Ozzy set. But actually, during Metallica's set, I remember seeing David Glenn Isley of Jafria. He was kind of in our section and stuff, and I know he was probably watching Metallica and going, whoa, like here's the new guard, basically. Jafria was kind of part of the old guard, I guess. Not to be, that's kind of not fair to say. They were still putting out records. I think Silk and Steel was either coming out or had come out. But you kind of get the feeling like things are changing. Really, really things were changing when Metallica, when Master Puppets came out. So I kind of got bored. I saw Ozzy maybe for 45 minutes, and I'm like, you know what? I'm curious. I'm going to go back to the backstage area. And when I had a Metallica pass, I didn't have an Ozzy pass, so it was kind of like. I think I snuck in at the right time before they stopped letting people with Metallica passes go back there. So I just hung out most of the time and just kind of people watched. I always like watching people, but I was lucky enough to stay back there and not go back because they wouldn't have let me back in. So I basically, it was like probably the tail end of the show, and Jakey Lee's gear had broken down for some reason. So he was having problems, probably the tail end of the show, and switching between amps, and so he's there hanging out. And then I see Warren DeMartini roll up, and they're probably old friends or old San Diego buds, and they were both in Rat at one time. Right. And here they are. I'm just seeing these guys like these rock gods, my favorite guitarists, Jakey Lee and Warren DeMartini just chum up and talk about guitars and what's going on with Jakey Lee's equipment and what's the problem and hope they figure it out type thing, And
so did Warren come out on stage with Jake?
No, this is kind of like after the show was over, and Jakey's he's got his red Chuck high tops. I remember that night. And I don't know, Warren just kind of came out of nowhere, basically, in this backstage area. So, but no, Warren didn't get up on stage or anything like that. So,
well, that's amazing. You would only get that type of stuff happening in the Los Angeles area with people hanging out. I saw that same tour probably about 15 to 20 days before you saw it, and I was living in Chicago, and I lived in the suburbs, but they played a place called the Chicago Pavilion, which from what I remember, was more located closer in towards the city. And I went to that show, and it was the same type of vibe where there were people there who were strictly Metallica fans. Now, you have to remember, guys, that with the Ultimate Sin, Ozzy definitely had kind of gone a little more glammier. You know, his hair got blonder and hairsprayed, and the spandex were out and stuff. So there were some people who didn't like Ozzy going that direction, and especially, there were a lot of fans there who loved Metallica and Ozzy like I did, but there were definitely, I specifically remember not a lot, but some people leaving after Metallica was done, and like saying "fuck Ozzy," Metallica, and stuff like that. So there was definitely, even within the metal community, there was like so many different like clubs, and you couldn't like Cinderella and Overkill and Metallica and stuff. There were so many lines drawn. I mean, I loved it all. I went to see Poison. I went to see frickin' Slayer. Everything in between. But there was so many people that frowned on that, and even at a Metallica Ozzy show in 1986, a line had been drawn among some of the fans. I remember, you mentioned Jake having problems on with his gear. When I saw the concert in Chicago, Jake was also having problems, but the problems were actually with his I guess his drinking or drugging or whatever, because he was so fucked up. He played perfectly, but then he was so messed up that he ended up falling over on stage, and I remember when they were playing the song "The Ultimate Sin," and it starts with that bass drum, just boom, 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 and he wouldn't start the song, and Ozzy kept looking at him, and he was getting pissed, and so there was definitely some issues with Jake. And then afterwards, on the way home, we listened to the radio, and there was this late night metal show called Real Precious Metal. They called it RPM. And Metallica had gone to the studio and were actually in the studio by the time doing an interview by the time the concert had ended. And I specifically, Ozzy at the end, Jake didn't finish the show. Basically, they cut the encore, and he said, "Sorry, we have to cut the show. Jake hurt his back," is what Ozzy said. And I remember the guys in Metallica on RPM basically laughing at that on the radio, saying that wasn't his back, and implying that it was, he was fucked up because of drugs or alcohol. So yeah, so it was kind of interesting, but great memories of the show. And even though Jake was messed up, he still managed to play the show really well when, up until those last final songs. I remember he was leaning up against the amps, though. He wasn't really moving much. And yeah, so that was that. And again, Metallica definitely on the radio basically saying that, hey, Ozzy lied, Jake didn't hurt his back, he was he was messed up. So and the crazy thing about that all is, we're talking, I saw him in May 1986 again at the Chicago Pavilion, the Ozzy Metallica tour. You saw him in June 1986. And I mean, you had your face-to-face run-in with Cliff, but it's incredible to think that this young kid really, was dead, by the end of September. I think it was like September 26th, 27th, 1986. And that was it. Yes. And, there's a lot of people who feel like you look at those first three Metallica records and how they sounded. And even for Justice for All, I believe one of the songs Cliff Burton has a writing credit on. It's like they're a band that evolved to different musical plateaus and places in their career, but they never really got back to that sound they had with Cliff. And I think he was an extremely important part of Metallica's sound on those first three records, and guided the band. And in some ways, you listen to Master of Puppets, you hear elements of progressive rock on there, and we know for a fact that out of the bunch, he was really the one guy who was really truly into progressive rock, like Yes and Genesis and stuff like that. So it is interesting, you know, and what a just tragic loss for heavy metal, and I mean, what could have been, you know, a Metallica with Cliff post Master of Puppets.
Yeah, you know, we were really, that whole summer after that show and just kind of being there and backstage and kind of seeing the whole thing, we were still on those fumes that whole summer. Like, that was our experience, really. And then September, hearing him die and hearing about it so tragically, you know, you would probably confer with this as well. It wasn't like a news item. It was a news item, but it was more of a footnote. But for us, it was headline stuff. Yeah, we all kind of mourned the whole thing. It was a big deal when Cliff died. So it was a shock. It was a real shock, you know,
complete shock. And I remember just being so bummed out, and also so happy that as like a 16-year-old kid, I was able to see them with Cliff, because I think, you know, at that point, you know, Metallica went on to really conquer the world and become one of the biggest bands, not just metal bands, one of the biggest rock bands of all time. And you could kind of sense that there was something about really special about this band, even back in those days. You know, they just weren't a thrash band. They just weren't a metal band. They were something more. They were something bigger than that. And I tell you, you know, there's many rock stars who had died, and I, you know, wish like, I wish I would have seen them when he was alive. But I'm so proud when I look back over the hundreds of concerts I went to in my life that I did get to witness Metallica with Cliff Burton, because I think that those four guys on stage together were really something special, and in the studio together. So on that note, let's get into some music. Let's go with some Ozzy. This is a song which you will, I can guarantee, never hear Ozzy play again live, but he did play it at most shows on that Metallica Ozzy tour in 1986. This is Secret Loser off the Ultimate Sin record. A little Ozzy Osbourne off the Ultimate Sin record. Were you a fan of that record, Carl?
I liked it just because I was a big guitar guy, and Jakey Lee was pretty much a monster on that. The production was a step up from Bark at the Moon. Nevison really came in there and kind of dialed in the kind of little more of an edge than what Bark at the Moon had.
I Bark
at the Moon did that. Yeah, so I liked it for that reason alone. So
yeah, I'm a real big fan of both of those Jakey Lee records. I think they, in the history of Ozzy's stuff, a lot of times they get overlooked a little bit in today's times. You know, we had Randy, who just, I mean, nothing compares to those two records. And Zach has become such an iconic figure, and, you know, people associate him with Ozzy. And, you know, the Jake records may be a little bit more of a commercial edge in some ways, but really great stuff. I mean, you look at Bark at the Moon, you know, and sure, there was, you know, a few songs that were maybe heavy on the keyboard, you know, but So Tired was kind of a ballad that really wasn't that great. But you look, I mean, Bark at the Moon, obviously the title track, Rock and Roll Rebel, Waiting for Darkness, a song off that album that I just think is one of Ozzy's greatest. A lot of great stuff off of that record. And then Ultimate Sin, I just played the hell out of that record. I mean, Killer of Giants, Fool Like You, a song that I don't believe Ozzy ever played live. If he did, it was only a handful of times. A great song. Of course, Shot in the Dark, the title track, a lot of Secret Loser, a lot of great stuff off of both those records.
It was a good listen. I remember that record very well, just like you are recalling it.
Cool. Well, let's get into a little Metallica right now off of the Master of Puppets record. Master of Puppets. What should we play, Carl? Any favorites off that record?
I like Master of Puppets. I remember my demo at the radio station. He got the promo 12-inch of it, and it cut off at that middle part. And that was just so horrid to do. That's the one thing that kind of stands out to me. Who would do this?
Right.
Can't put the whole thing on there.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Cool. Here we go. Little Master of Puppets by Metallica. What you just heard was a little Metallica here on Talking Metal. Carl Alvarez of the Inside Metal documentary series is joining us here to share memories. And let's hit another memory before we sign off here tonight, Carl. The David Lee Roth post Van Halen had some what I consider just great stuff. I remember seeing him at the Rosemont Horizon in the Chicago suburbs on the Eat 'em and Smile tour, and sold out. Amazing night. Just on fire. One of my favorite concerts of all time. Also caught him, I think, it moved around a lot as a kid, but I think when he came around with Skyscraper, I saw him actually in Philly at the Spectrum. Where you saw David Lee Roth on the Skyscraper tour, right?
I saw Eat 'em and Smile.
You saw that one too, okay.
So that was the second night, Saturday night.
You did two nights?
Did 2 nights at the Forum, Friday and Saturday. Cinderella opening.
Yes.
We went on a whim, basically. Like, okay, we hope we can get tickets and stuff. And at the time, I was friends with Sue Tropio, who we were. She works for Metallica's management, but back then we were buds. You know, we'd always go to concerts together and stuff, and we went to school together. So her and I and a couple other friends, we went to see David Lee Roth. She's a big guitarist. That's why we bonded, her and I, you know, because she's a big Michael Schenker fan, and
sure.
Of course Steve Vai and John Sykes. She loved John Sykes, you know, so we were always into that and talking about guitarists and stuff. So we wanted to see Steve Vai in action, so saw that show. But the Skyscraper tour, that was in '88 at the Forum,
right?
June, I believe. Poison opened up the show.
Yes,
and this is the time when Steve Vai had his Heart guitar. Yes. He was
big Heart
that
guitar. And David Lee Roth got on a surfboard. Do you remember that? And surfed out over the audience?
Yeah, I remember people were mentioning that to me. I may have missed that, but that's probably when it was and when he did that. My other David Lee Roth memory is he shot the video for Yankee Rose in San Bernardino at that Orange Pavilion. So
okay.
We were in the audience, but you were not to see. But
yeah.
I was at that video shoot too, talking about Dave Roth and stuff. So, but Slash, jumping ahead of gear, Slash was in our section.
You go back to the Skyscraper tour, right?
Yeah, I'm jumping all over the place. Sorry, guys.
No, that's fine.
I always think the David Lee Roth experience is just everything, you know. I mean, it's just David Lee Roth. It's a big show, you know. He's just a showman, you know. And it's always awesome to see David Lee Roth. I mean, regardless, you know.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Slash came. Slash was there. I don't know if with a business associate or just the pal of his, but he had his hat on, kind of incognito, but it kind of wasn't working
right
for him. But yeah, so he was in our section. Not much more I could really say. I didn't really feel like the need to like go up and introduce myself. It just didn't. You know, some situations they don't just kind of they don't call for that. I don't know what that is, but it just. You know, I think at that time too, Guns N' Roses were slated to be on that Iron Maiden tour, and that had just happened maybe like a month before that.
Okay,
but I think at that time. They got kicked off the tour or something. They had a dispute with their management. I don't know what was going on. I was really looking forward to Guns N' Roses opening up for Iron Maiden like a month earlier. I think it was in April or May. But then LA Guns opened up the show. So I think that left Guns N' Roses. I don't think they were doing anything at that time. I don't know if they were touring. So I guess it gave Slash the opportunity to kind of hang out and see a show at the Forum. So.
And was he into it? Was he like jumping up and down, or was he kind of just sitting back?
He was just hanging back, being cool, being slapped.
Right. Yeah, it is interesting. This is kind of slightly off topic, but we were talking a lot about Jakey Lee, and I recently, I guess it was last year, 2016. My wife and I flew out to Las Vegas for what was, technically the first Guns N' Roses show, if you don't count the warm up show they did in L.A. at the what club was that? The Troubadour, or I don't know.
Oh yeah, the Troubadour. Yeah.
So the first reunion show was a warm up show at the Troubadour. The first big arena show was the opening night of this T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas in 2016. So my wife and I flew out for that, and I looked down. We had really good seats up close, but we were not on the floor. We were like on the side, so we were up, 5-10 feet higher than the floor, but right there. And I see this guy probably like 20 feet from me on the floor, just going crazy, like screaming and yelling and dancing every song, and putting his beer cup in the air and just having a blast. And I'm like, I know that guy. I was like, where do I know him from? And I keep staring at him, and sure enough, Jakey Lee at the Guns N' Roses show,
awesome.
Going crazy, not hanging back, not acting like Mr. Cool Guy, literally fist pumping, screaming and yelling, and acting like a true fan at the Guns N' Roses show with a bunch of his friends, a couple girls, and I think another guy with him. So interesting. But yeah.
Yeah, he lives out in Vegas, so it all makes sense. So
yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, hey, Carl, it's always great talking with you about our heavy metal memories, and let's do it again. Let's keep going. We have a lot of other memories to share, and it's just great to kind of talk through them and relive them, and I know the listeners are enjoying it. So let's wrap things up tonight and have you back sometime in the near future to continue the discussion. Cool?
Sounds good, Mark.
Cool. What do you want to play? Can we play some David Lee Roth solo?
Yeah, Tobacco Road, man. Let's do that.
Road, yeah. A cover. I don't know who did the original, but Tobacco Road off the Eat 'Em and Smile record. Great track. Carl Alvarez, where can we connect with you online? Is there a Twitter account?
Yeah, I'm on, my handle is _Carl. You can also find me on the Inside Metal Twitter page, which is Inside LA Metal. I don't know the handle, but you can find it. And on Facebook as well, Inside LA Metal. And that's where you can kind of connect up with me.
Cool. And how is the next edition of Inside Metal coming along?
It's definitely in the works and being worked out, and we hope to have it out no later than fall. Could be as early as summer. Just depends how all the elements come together and stuff. So, looking good though.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that. Again, thank you, Carl. We'll catch up with you in a week or two and do another one of these. And this is David Lee Roth off the Eat 'Em and Smile record. Billy Sheehan, Greg Bissonette, Steve Vai, of course, and David Lee Roth with Tobacco Road. Thanks, guys. A big thanks to you, the listener, for listening to Talking Metal. Again, please use the Amazon links and check out the site. We're doing a thing that is called On This Day. So if you go to the site, you'll see a little historic event that happened on this day, many years before. And sometimes it's, Deep Purple played Alabama, and here was their set list in 1975, or Metal from Mothers, the album that really spawned the new wave of British heavy metal scene, was released on this day in 1980, and stuff like that. So check it out. It's called On This Day, and it's a section on talkingmetal.com. We also have a news section There is the Mitch LaFon section where we post Mitch's great interviews that he does on the Mitch LaFon podcast, one-on-one with Mitch LaFon. And then there's the Talking Metal section where we post these podcasts, and sometimes we throw up one of our Talking Metal jams in that section. Cool, guys. Thank you, and I appreciate you listening to this episode. Good night.